Good morning, students. Welcome to the yepmaster.com. It is an excellent educational platform which will support you to get the seat in the best medical colleges. So, certainly, will fulfill your dream of becoming a doctor. So, you have taken a very wise decision by opting the crash course in yepmaster.com. And chemistry is the subject which will confirm your seat in medical fraternity. Biology, everyone will do better. In competitive exams, relatively who scores better, he will only get the seat. So biology, normally people score very well and everyone prepares to the core in biology. So chemistry is the subject, if you score very well, it will confirm the seat, and if you do well in physics, that will decide your college. So chemistry is the one subject which confirms your seat in medical college. So students, welcome to the subject that confirms your seat in medical college. During this 45 days of crash course, we will discuss the important concepts of each and every chapter. Now, to start with, atomic structure is chosen because this is the topic from which you may get the theoretical questions, you may get the conceptual questions, you may get the problematic questions, and you may get the graphical questions as well. It is a very versatile topic. Atomic structure is a versatile topic where if you are perfect in atomic structure, the remaining chemistry goes very easily. Atomic structure, periodic table, stoichiometry, and a chemical bond, these are the pillars of chemistry. If you are perfect in these four topics, the remaining inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry becomes very easy. If you are perfect in stoichiometry, the remaining physical chemistry becomes very easy. If you are perfect in chemical bond, organic chemistry becomes very easy. If you are perfect in periodic table, inorganic chemistry becomes easy, and for all these three topics, atomic structure is the base. So, atomic structure is a very important topic in the view of competitive exams. So, let us start with the atomic structure. Basically, to start with the atomic structure, we must start with the Rutherford's postulate. You have to remember one point very carefully, students. Initially, we have to start with the basic things only. From the basic things, we have to move on to very high level concepts. Unless until we discuss the basic concepts, you will not feel comfortable in very high level topics. So, initially you may feel that we are discussing the basic concepts. It is not so. In order to discuss the very high level concepts, first of all we are making the foundation by discussing the basic level points. To start with the atomic structure, we must start with the Rutherford's postulates. And nowadays, people are, because of this competitive coaching centers, students are concentrating on the very high level concepts and neglecting the basic level concepts. That is the reason why the new trend is sometimes the paper setters are asking the questions from very root level, I mean from the basic level. So you cannot afford to neglect the basic level concepts. So in the atomic structure, we will start with the basic concepts, we will discuss the basic concepts for a few minutes, then we will move on to the very high level concepts on the basis of these basic level concepts. First of all, if you consider the Rutherford's postulates, he says he is the one who discovered the nucleus. He says atom is spherical in shape and the total mass of the atom is concentrated at the center, and this is positively charged because of the presence of proton, and this center he called it as a nucleus. That is how nucleus was discovered by Rutherford. He says that, very important point, outside of the nucleus in an atom, outside of the nucleus, the total space is empty. This is the very important point. In order to understand the remaining atomic structure part, you have to understand this part. Outside of the nucleus, according to Rutherford, everything is empty space. Electron is revolving in this empty space continuously around the nucleus like this. Because nucleus is positively charged and the electron is negatively charged, there will be attraction between positively charged nucleus and negatively charged electron, and that attraction is known as the centripetal force. centripetal force. But because of the centripetal force, electron does not come closer to the nucleus and will not fall into the nucleus, because electron is in continuous motion. As electron is continuously revolving around the nucleus, it possesses the kinetic energy, and this kinetic energy is equal to the centripetal force, and this kinetic energy is called as centrifugal force, which is equal to the centripetal force but working in the opposite direction. So nucleus is attracting the electron, but electron is not falling into the nucleus because electron is continuously revolving around the nucleus. Therefore, electron possesses the centrifugal force which is equal to the centripetal force but working in the opposite direction. Therefore, electron is not falling into the nucleus. As electron is not falling into the nucleus, atom is not collapsed. This is the explanation given by Rutherford for the stability of the atom. He says that is the reason why atom is stable, because centrifugal force is operating in the opposite direction and which is exactly equal to the centripetal force in magnitude. But law of electrodynamics, according to modern physics, law of electrodynamics, according to this, any charged particle when it is in motion should lose the energy continuously. So as the electron being a charged particle, as it is continuously revolving around the nucleus, it should lose energy continuously. By losing the energy continuously, it should finally come closer to the nucleus and finally fall into the nucleus, and atom should be collapsed. But atom is not getting collapsed, atom is stable. Why? In spite of continuously losing the energy, electron which is a charged particle, why it is not falling into the nucleus, why atom is stable, could not be answered by the Rutherford's atomic model. And second point is, as energy released continuously by electron, the spectrum formed must be continuous spectrum like this. As energy is released continuously, the lines will appear continuously like this. So the spectrum formed must be continuous spectrum. But the spectrum formed is discontinuous spectrum, means line spectrum like this. One line is formed, gap, that means energy is not released. After certain time, some energy is released or absorbed, one line is formed, again gap, again line is formed. So formation of line spectrum explains the energy released or absorbed discontinuously, not continuously. So if electron is losing energy continuously, the spectrum formed must be continuous, but the spectrum formed is line spectrum. Why? And this point also could not be answered by the Rutherford. These are the famous demerits of Rutherford's atomic model. Number one, he could not answer the question raised by the law of electrodynamics, which says that any charged particle when it is in continuous motion should lose the energy. Therefore, electron being a charged particle should lose energy continuously because it is continuously revolving around the nucleus, therefore should finally fall into the nucleus and atom should be collapsed. But atom is stable, and this could not be answered by the Rutherford's atomic model. And second one is, as energy released continuously, the spectrum formed must be continuous spectrum, but the what spectrum formed is line spectrum. That indicates energy is not released or absorbed continuously. Why there is a discontinuity in absorption or emission of energy could not be answered by the Rutherford's atomic model. From here, our real atomic structure lesson starts, students. So you must understand these topics in order to understand the remaining atomic structure part. So Niels Bohr has rectified these two demerits by proposing his famous Niels Bohr atomic model, which is based on the Max Planck quantum theory and Rutherford's atomic model as well. He has taken some points from the Rutherford's atomic model and he has taken some points from the Max Planck quantum theory. In order to understand the Max Planck quantum theory, you must understand the wave properties. If you understand the wave properties, you can understand the Max Planck quantum theory. If you understand the Max Planck quantum theory, then you will come to know what points are being taken by Niels Bohr in order to justify the demerits of Rutherford's atomic model. Now let us move on to wave properties, and wave property is one area where you will get the problems in your competitive exams. Certainly, this is the most frequently asked area, that wave properties in atomic structure, where you will get the problematic questions. Now let us move on to the wave properties. Right, wave properties, wave properties. To start with the wave properties, first of all you must understand the wavelength. Of course, these are the basic level things, but we have to revise. Unless until we revise all these things, we directly cannot go into the higher level concepts. Wavelength. This is the distance between the two successive crusts or two successive troughs is known as the wavelength, and this is the wavelength. From here to here it is considered to be one wave. The distance between the two successive crusts or two successive troughs is known as the wavelength. Wavelength is expressed in terms of angstrom units or in nanometers. Angstrom units or nanometers. 1 angstrom unit is equal to, 1 angstrom unit is equal to, even if you know, just try to tell along with me. 1 angstrom unit is equal to 10 power minus 8 centimeters in CGS units, or 10 power minus 10 meters in SI units. That means 1 nanometer is equal to 1 nanometer is equal to 10 power minus 7 centimeters or 10 power minus 9 meters in SI units. From this relation, what you can write, students? 1 centimeter is equal to 1 centimeter is equal to 10 power 8 angstrom units, and 1 centimeter is equal to 10 power 7 nanometers. Similarly, 1 meter is equal to 1 meter is equal to 10 power 10 angstrom units, and 1 meter is equal to 10 power 9 nanometers. From this relation, 1 centimeter is equal to 10 power 8 angstrom units and 1 centimeter is equal to 10 power 7 nanometers. From this relation, 10 power 7 nanometers is equal to 10 power 8 angstrom units. Now, what is the relation between nanometers and angstrom units? And this will get cancelled. So, 1 nanometer is equal to 10 angstrom units. That means, if you are supposed to convert the nanometers into angstrom units, you must multiply with the 10, or if you are supposed to convert the angstrom units into nanometers, you must divide with the 10. You have to remember. So, based on this, nowadays they are asking the problems in order to make students confused. They are asking the problems in nanometers rather than asking in the angstrom units. This conversion will be very useful when we come to the calculation of the radius of the orbits. Okay? So, you must be perfect in this kind of conversion, students. So, this is all about the wavelength. Now, next, velocity of light. The distance travelled by light in 1 second time is known as the velocity of light, and its value is 3 into 10 power 10 centimeter per second, or 3 into 10 power 8 meter per second. This is the velocity of light. This is the velocity of light. Now, frequency, which is equal to nu, which is denoted by nu. Frequency means the number of waves that crossed through a given point in 1 second time is known as the frequency. Frequency means nothing but the velocity, speed of the wave formation. Speed of the wave formation is nothing but the frequency. So, if 1 second time there are more number of waves are formed, and you take the another case where only one wave is formed in 1 second time. In this case, frequency is less because the number of waves that cross through a given point in 1 second time is less here in this case. Here wavelength is more, but here number of waves formed are more. That means frequency is more, but wavelength is less. What does it indicate, students? The frequency and the wavelength are inversely proportional to each other. So, if you remove the proportion, you will get the constant, and that constant is nothing but the velocity of light. Nu is equal to c by lambda, which is equal to the units of the frequency is hertz or cycle per second. This is all about the velocity of light and frequency, students. Now, third one is wave number. which is denoted by nu bar, wave number. The number of waves that spread in 1 centimeter length or 1 meter length is known as the wave number. Let us say it is 1 centimeter. Here more number of 1, 2, 3, 4 waves are formed. So, if you take the another case, just 1 centimeter only, like this, only one wave is formed. Wavelength is more, but wave number of waves formed in this length is less. That means wave number is less, but wavelength is more. Here wave number is more, but wavelength is less, which indicates wave number and wavelength are reciprocal to each other. Therefore, nu bar is equal to 1 by lambda. They are both are reciprocal to each other, and units are centimeter inverse or meter inverse. Nu is equal to c by lambda. Nu is equal to c by lambda, which can be written as c into 1 by lambda, and 1 by lambda is nothing but the nu bar. Therefore, nu is equal to c into nu bar. Frequency and wavelength are inversely proportional, and frequency wave number are directly proportional. Suppose they ask you the questions in this way: two light radiations, the ratio of their frequencies is 1:2. Then what would be the ratio of their wavelengths? Means then it would be 2:1. Why? Because frequency and wavelength are inversely proportional. Suppose if they have given frequency ratio is 1:2 and they ask you to find out the ratio of their wave numbers, then still it remains 1:2 only. Why? Because frequency and wave number are directly proportional. Here it is reversed because frequency and wavelength are inversely proportional. So frequency and wavelength are inversely proportional. Whatever is the ratio of the frequencies, that will be reversed in case of wavelength. Whereas frequency and wave number are directly proportional, whatever is the ratio of their frequencies, that will remain same as in the case of their ratio of their wave numbers. You must remember this relation, students. Max Planck quantum theory. Max Planck has proposed his quantum theory to explain the radiation emitted by the black body. Black body is not real existence. It is the brainchild of the scientist. Black body is the one which absorbs all the light falling upon it, which absorbs all the energy falling upon it, and releases all that radiation or all that energy when it is heated, is known as the black body. If light falls upon the ordinary body, some of the light will be absorbed, some of the light will be scattered, and some of the light will be reflected. Whereas in case of black body, there is no reflection, there is no scattering. Whatever the amount of light falls upon the black body, that whole amount of light will be absorbed in case of black body. When that black body is heated, all the absorbed light will be emitted. It doesn't keep anything. It emits all the absorbed radiation. Such a body is known as the black body. Max Planck has proposed it is a Planck's theory in order to explain the radiation emitted by the black body. The very one important universal phenomena is, of course, it is applicable to every particle in the universe. That is, energy of every radiation is directly proportional to its frequency. Obviously, it is applicable not only this radiation emitted by black body, it as a matter of fact to any particle in the universe. Suppose if I throw this marker like this, suppose if it hits somebody, it does not feel much pain because the speed is less, frequency is less. Suppose if I throw like this, if it hits somebody, he feels very much pain because the frequency is more. So frequency is always directly proportional to energy or vice versa. Therefore, the energy of light radiation emitted by a black body is directly proportional to its frequency, and that is when you remove the proportion you will get the constant, and that constant is nothing but the Planck's constant, and Planck's constant value is 6.625 into 10 power minus 27 ergs into second in CGS units, or 6.625 into 10 power minus 34 joules into second. So energy is directly proportional to frequency. And very importantly, which point is taken by the Niels Bohr from the Max Planck quantum theory is, that is what he says is, energy is not released continuously from the black body but released discontinuously in the form of small packets called quanta. This is the point which is taken by the Niels Bohr in order to explain the formation of line spectrum. He says, Max Planck says that energy is not released from black body continuously but released discontinuously in the form of small packets called quanta. In plural we call it as quanta and in singular we call it as quantum. One quantum is equal to 1 h nu. And also the energy is released from the black body either in the form of one quantum or some integral multiple of that. That means the energy will be always released in the form of 1 h nu, 2 h nu, 3 h nu, 4 h nu and so on. It never releases as 1.5 h nu, 2.25 h nu, 3.3 h nu, it never releases. Either it releases in the form of one quantum or some integral multiple of that. So these are the two important points which are useful for understanding the rectification of demerits of Rutherford atomic model by Niels Bohr. So energy of light radiation is directly proportional to its frequency, therefore E is equal to h nu. H is the Planck's constant and values are given here. Black body releases energy not continuously but discontinuously in the form of small packets called quanta. Singular quantum, 1 h nu is equal to 1 quantum. Later on Einstein generalized this concept. What he says is, if for example instead of quantum he has taken the photon. Light consists of small particles and that each particle is known as the photon, and photon is a bundle of energy but has no mass, and each photon is given as, the energy of each photon is given as E is equal to h nu. That means the frequency of the energy of the photon is also directly proportional to its frequency, and if you remove the proportion, if you get the constant, E is equal to h nu. Einstein generalized this concept. Therefore, E is equal to h nu, E is equal to h nu, E is equal to, nu is nothing but the hc by lambda, and this can be written as E into h into c into 1 by lambda, and that is nothing but the E is equal to h into c into nu bar. Students, here also you can observe energy and frequency are directly proportional, energy and wavelength are inversely proportional, and energy and wave number are directly proportional. We have two light radiations, for example A and B. Let us say one light radiation is A, another light radiation is B, and their wavelengths are 2000 angstrom minutes and 4000 angstrom minutes respectively. Therefore, what is the ratio of their energies? This is the previous IIT question. That's what I am saying. Sometimes the most basic questions will appear in the high level competitive exams. Therefore, you cannot neglect by thinking that these are very basic level confidence, we can do at any time. So that kind of overconfidence sometimes may backfire. So you have to understand, see this is literally an IIT question. There are two light radiations. One light radiation wavelength is 2000 angstrom minutes, another light radiation wavelength is 4000 angstrom minutes, and what is the ratio of their energies? We know that E1 by E2 or EA by EB is equal to lambda B by lambda A. Because energy and wavelength are inversely proportional. What is the lambda B? 4000. What is lambda E? 2000. Therefore, 2 is to 1. Then what is the ratio of their frequencies? Then also 2 is to 1, because energy and frequency are directly proportional. If they ask what is the ratio of their wave numbers, then also 2 is to 1, because energy and wave number are also directly proportional. Let us solve one previous question. The energy of light radiation is 19.875 into 10 power minus 13 ergs. What is the wavelength in angstrom minutes of that light radiation? The energy is given here, and they are asking us to find out the wavelength, that too in angstrom units. So energy is given. We know the formula, E is equal to h into c by lambda. Let me tell you one point here. I tell you the customization of the formula. See, h value is, we know that 6.625 into 10 power minus 27, because it is given in ergs. Velocity of light is 3 into 10 power 10. If you do this, this product of 6.625 into 3 will always give the 19.875. Every time you do not have to multiply. The product of H and C will give the 19.875 into 10 power minus 17 in case of X. Whereas in case of joules, 6.625 into 10 power minus 34, and velocity of light should be taken in meters, 3 into 10 power 8, and this equals to 6.625 into 3 is always equals to 19.875 into 10 power minus 34 into 10 power 8 will give the 10 power minus 26 joules. So every time you do not have to calculate, students. This is what I told you, the customization of the problem. Now you see this, E is equal to hc by lambda. E is equal to how much is given, students? 19.875 into 10 power minus 13x. And hc value we have already calculated, how much? 19.875 into 10 power minus 17. Now calculation becomes very easy. This is also 19.875, this is also 19.875. Most of the times the problem will be set in such a fashion where denominator and numerator easily get cancelled by lambda. So on cancellation 19.875, 19.875 cancels, 10 power minus 13 cancels 10 power minus 17, and remaining is 10 power minus 4. Therefore, lambda is equal to 10 power minus 4 centimeters. But he is asking us to find out the problem in angstrom unit. So angstrom unit means we know that 1 centimeter is equal to 10 power 8 angstrom units. We have seen already at the beginning. Therefore, in order to convert into angstrom units, it must be multiplied with the 10 power 8. Therefore, this is equal to 10 power 4 angstrom units. That means 10,000 angstrom units is the answer for this question. I don't mean that every time you have to write 19.875 into 10 power minus 17. Suppose if they given the problem 19.875, directly you can write 19.875. Suppose they given 3000 angstrom units, then you split 6.625 into 3, because 3 and 3 can be easily get cancelled. So this is how you have to customize the formula according to the values given there. This kind of skill you must develop to complete the problem in very short time as well as complete the problem in right method. Very importantly, the next very important concept, that is photoelectric effects. Now we are moving into very important concept, that is called photoelectric effects. Let me tell you one point very clearly, students. Photoelectric effect is the very important concept, and the advantage of learning this photoelectric effect means you will have dual benefit. One is you have atomic physics topic in your secondary physics. There also this photoelectric effect will be repeated. So learning photoelectric effect here will help you out in physics. Sometimes your luck favors, the question from photoelectric effect may appear in the chemistry as well as in the physics, so that you can score very well in both the cases. So you have to listen with the utmost concentration. Photoelectric effect is a very important concept. See, when light of certain frequency falls upon a thin metallic plate, the electrons are ejected. This phenomena is known as the photoelectric effect. This phenomena is known as the photoelectric effect. Let me explain. Let us say this is the thin metallic plate, and this is a metal atom, and this is the nucleus, and this is the outermost electron, and there is a weak electrostatic force of attraction exists between the nucleus and as well as the electron. What happens? Metals tend to lose the electrons very easily because the attraction between the nucleus and outermost electron is very weak in the case of the metal atoms. So when the light of certain wavelength, certain frequency falls upon this thin metallic plate, light consists of small particles. Just now we have revised that. Einstein says that light consists of small particles which are called photons. Each photon is a bundle of energy but has no mass. When light falls upon this thin metallic plate, so this light consists of a photon, and the photon comes and bombards the electron, and I mean collides the electron. The moment photon bombards the electron, the energy is transferred from photon to electron. This is a very common phenomena you observe. See, suppose I am teaching here by standing here, someone comes by running, suppose he collides me, what happens? The moment he collides me, he transfers his kinetic energy to me, therefore I start moving and he stops because he transferred all his energy to me. So, collision always makes energy transferred between one particle to another particle. The moment photon comes and bombards the electron, energy is transferred from photon to electron. Electron now gains the energy from photon and utilizes that energy in the two ways. First of all, by using some part of the energy, it breaks the nucleus attraction, and the energy that is required to break the nucleus attraction is known as the work function, W, or it can also be denoted with the phi. So, work function W, and with the remaining energy, electron is emitted, so the remaining energy utilized as a kinetic energy. So, the total energy that is transferred from photon, some part of that energy utilized to break the nucleus attraction, which is known as the work function, and with the remaining energy, electron is emitted, and that is called kinetic energy. So, E is equal to W plus Ke. We know that E is equal to W plus Ke. E is equal to, already we know that E is equal to h nu, no? E is equal to h nu. Therefore, E is equal to h nu. W is also energy which is utilized to break the nucleus attraction. Therefore, W can be written as h nu naught. What is this nu naught? Nu naught is known as threshold frequency. Threshold frequency means, I tell you what it is. H nu is equal to h nu naught plus kinetic energy. So, kinetic energy h nu naught is taken this side. Therefore, kinetic energy is equal to h nu minus h nu naught. By taking the h common, this becomes the h into nu minus nu naught. We know that nu is equal to c by lambda. Therefore, nu is equal to c by lambda. Therefore, here this can be written as h into c by lambda minus h into c by lambda naught. This is threshold wavelength. So, if you take the hc common, you will get the K is equal to hc into 1 by lambda minus 1 by lambda naught. Now, let us see what is the threshold frequency. What is the threshold frequency? We will see. See, let us suppose this is a metallic plate, this is a metallic plate, and this is the nucleus, and we have electron here, we have electron here, electron here. Suppose in this case work function means which is required to break the nucleus attraction is, let us suppose, 4 electron volts, 4 electron volts. Now, we are incidenting a light whose frequency is 3 electron volts. Just with the common sense you can say that. Now, by using 3 electron volts frequency, frequency is nothing but the energy. Frequency and energy are directly proportional to each other. So, we use the term energy instead of frequency. So, by using the 3 electron volts energy radiation, can we break this nucleus attraction whose energy requirement is 4 electron volts? No. How much is minimum required to break this nucleus attraction? Yeah, 4 electron volts. 4 electron volts minimum energy is required to break this nucleus attraction, then only electron will be ejected. So, this minimum frequency or energy which is required to break this nucleus attraction is known as the threshold frequency. The light radiation that contains the frequency less than threshold frequency will not eject the electron, therefore, it does not show the photoelectric effect. If it is exactly 4 electron volts, electron is ejected, but kinetic energy will be 0. Now, let us suppose the frequency of this one is 10 electron volts, 10 electron volts. So, when the moment photon collides the electron, 10 electron volts of energy is transferred from photon to electron. Now, out of that 10 electron volts energy gained by the electron, 4 electron volts of energy is utilized to break the nucleus attraction, and what would be the remaining kinetic energy? Yes, remaining kinetic energy is 6 electron volts. So the minimum frequency or energy that is required to break the nucleus attraction is known as the threshold frequency. The light radiation that contains the less frequency than the threshold frequency will not eject the electron, thereby it does not show the photoelectric effect. In order to show the photoelectric effect, it must contain the minimum threshold frequency or greater than that. If it is exactly same, kinetic energy becomes 0, and it is more than that kinetic energy, if the frequency goes on increase, then kinetic energy also increase. That is called threshold frequency. The work function of this is very interesting problem, and this is also previous IIT problem. Students, don't feel bad because I am by teaching the NEET class, I am discussing the IIT problems. It is not like that. Any problem that increases our strength or that increases our conceptual strength is always welcome. Doesn't matter whether it is asked in IIT or asked in NEET or BITSET, it doesn't make no difference. It doesn't make any difference. Only thing is, it has to develop our concept. It has to strengthen our concept. So, by solving this problem, you can strengthen your concepts. That is the reason why I picked up this problem deliberately. See, this is such a beautiful problem. By solving this problem, you can understand what is the importance of threshold frequency. And the problem is, the work function of some metals is listed below. The work function of all these metals, here it comes magnesium, students. The work function of the sum of the metals are given here. So, metals are given in first column and work function values are given in the second column. The number of metals which will show photoelectric effect, how many metals will show the photoelectric effect when the light of 300 nanometers wavelength is falling upon this metal. See, instead of telling us the energy directly, he has given wavelength. Thereby we have to calculate the energy. From that energy we have to see that how many of them can show the photoelectric effect. In order to show the photoelectric effect, the frequency or energy of that light radiation must be greater than their respective threshold frequency values. Now let us say, we know that E is equal to H nu, E is equal to H nu, E is equal to H into C by lambda. That is 6.625 into 10 power minus 34 joules, and velocity of light is 3 into 10 power 8, and wavelength is 300 nanometers, and it should be converted into meters by multiplying with the 10 power 9. 300 into 10 power 9 will give the 10 power minus 7, 3 into 100, 100 into 10 power minus 9, 10 power minus 7, if it goes up 10 power 15, 10 power 15, 10 power minus 34 cancels, that is equal to 10 power minus 19, and 3 will get cancelled. So, 6.625 into 10 power minus 19 joules. This is the energy, but here values are given in electron volts. Now let us convert into electron volts. We know that 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 joules is equal to 1 electron volt. Therefore, 6.625 into 10 power minus 19 joules equals to how much? That is 6.625 into 10 power minus 19 joules by 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 joules. 10 power minus 19, 10 power minus 19 cancel, 1.6 cancel, 6.625, that is equal to 4.14 electron volts. 4.14 electron volts. So, that light radiation contains the frequency or energy that is equal to 4.14. Now, what is the concept, student? In order to show the photoelectric effect, their threshold frequencies must be less than 4.14. Those metals which have greater threshold value than the 4.14 will not show the photoelectric effect. Only those metals will show whose threshold frequency values are less than 4.14. From this, how many metals will show, students? Lithium will show 2.4, lithium will show, sodium 2.3 shows, potassium 2.2 shows, magnesium 3.7 shows, copper 4.8 will not show because the value is 4.14. This will not show. From here all of them will not show the photoelectric effect. So how many metals that will show the photoelectric effect because of the incidenting the light radiation whose wavelength is 300 nanometers is only 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the importance of photoelectric effect, students. I mean threshold frequency. So the minimum frequency that is required to break the nucleus attraction is known as the threshold frequency. So the light radiation must contain the greater frequency than the threshold frequency, then only photoelectric effect can be shown. So this is what threshold frequency and photoelectric effect, students. I hope you understand this. Yeah, this is the very beautiful concept. And as I told you, from atomic structure you may get the theoretical questions, you may get the problematic questions, you may get the graphical questions as well. This is one of the area from photoelectric effect where the questions may come in the form of graphs. Now we have a metallic plate, and this is the electron, In first case, so you must understand one photon will eject one electron, Now we have only one photon, let us assume we have the light radiation which contains only one photon and its frequency is 10 electron volts and work function, I mean to break the nucleus attraction we require 5 electron volts. Light radiation frequency is 10 electron volts, work function is 5 electron volts. How much energy will be, what would be the kinetic energy? Kinetic energy would be 5 electron volts. Because 10 minus 5 is equal to 5. Now what I do is, now I increase the frequency. I am not increasing the number of photons. In order to increase the number of photons, I must increase the intensity of the light. I am not touching the intensity of the light right now. So the number of photons remains same. Now what I am doing is, I am increasing the frequency from 10 electron volts to 20 electron volts. So frequency now increased 20 electron volts, but work function for a given metal remains the same. So the work function of this metal is 5 electron volts only. There will be no change in its work function, only frequency changed from 10 electron volts to 20 electron volts. Now students, what would be the kinetic energy? Yes, 15 electron volts. That means if the frequency is increased, the kinetic energy is also increased. From where the kinetic energy increases? Before threshold frequency, kinetic energy will not be increased because before threshold frequency, electron is not ejected at all. After the electron is ejected, then only kinetic energy increases. That is the reason why from threshold frequency, as the frequency increases, the kinetic energy also increases. From threshold frequency, as the frequency increases, kinetic energy also increases. This is very important point. Now I am increasing the intensity of the light. That means I am not touching the frequency, I am just increasing the intensity of the light. If I increase the intensity of the light, number of photons increases. As already we have assumed that one photon releases one electron, as I increased the intensity of the light, number of photons increases, thereby number of electrons emitted increases. Therefore, kinetic energy remains same after being intensity of the light increased. So kinetic energy is independent of the intensity of the light. Kinetic energy depends upon only on the frequency of the light. It is independent of the intensity of the light. The same statement can be asked in the statement type of question, students. It is not that they have to ask in the graphical form. They may ask in the statement type of questions by saying that kinetic energy is independent of the intensity of the light. Right or wrong? Right. What is the correct explanation? Kinetic energy depends upon only on the frequency of the light. Then statement 1 is correct, statement 2 is also correct, and statement 2 is the correct explanation of statement 1. So kinetic energy will not increase by increasing the intensity of the light. Kinetic energy is independent of the intensity of the light. If the intensity of the light increases, the number of photons released will increase. Now you take the another graph like this. Frequency you take, number of electrons emitted, frequency is taken on the x-axis, number of electrons emitted is taken on the y-axis. Because of the increase in the frequency, kinetic energy increases. But because of the increase in the frequency, number of electrons emitted will not increase. Number of electrons emitted will increase when intensity of the light increases. Therefore, number of electrons emitted is always independent of the frequency. Therefore, the graph comes parallel to the x-axis. Number of electrons emitted will increase when there is increase in the intensity of the light. Because of the increase in the frequency of light, the number of electrons emitted will not increase, it remains the same. Now I take the intensity of the light on the x-axis and number of electrons emitted on the y-axis. Intensity. Already we have discussed so far that intensity of the light increases, number of photons increases. As the number of photons increases, number of electrons emitted also increases. Thereby graph comes like this. As the intensity of the light increases, number of electrons emitted also increases. These concepts can be asked in the graphical form or they can be asked in the statement type of questions. What are the points? Kinetic energy increases from threshold frequency as the frequency increases. Point number 1. Point number 2, kinetic energy is independent of the intensity of the light. Kinetic energy increases only when frequency increases. It does not depend upon the intensity of the light. Point number 3, number of electrons emitted remains independent of the frequency. Because of the increase of frequency, kinetic energy increases, but number of electrons emitted remains the same. Therefore, it is parallel to the x-axis. As the intensity of the light increases, the number of electrons emitted also increases. This is another wonderful question. A plot of kinetic energy of ejected electrons as a function of the frequency of incident radiation for 4 alkali metals. Alkali metals means, let us say, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium. It is given like that. 4 alkali metals is given below. It is the graph between the kinetic energy and frequency. Just now we have seen that as the frequency increases, kinetic energy increases from their threshold frequencies values. These are the threshold frequencies values of that respective metals M1, M2, M3, M4. Now what we have to find out is M1 is which metal, M2 is which metal, and M3 and M4 are which metals. We have to find out that. You have to apply very simple concept. From lithium to sodium, size increases. From lithium to sodium, sodium to potassium, potassium to rubidium, size increases. As the size increases, the distance between the nucleus and outermost electron also increases. As the distance between the nucleus and outermost electron increases, the nucleus attraction becomes very, very weak as the size of the atomic size increases. Nuclear attraction is inversely proportional to atomic size. Now you can see, as the atomic size increases, the distance between the nucleus and outermost electron increases. As the distance between the nucleus and outermost electron increases, the nucleus attraction becomes weak, therefore it can be easily broken. When compared to lithium, in sodium, it can be easily broken. That means the work function, the threshold frequency in case of sodium is less when compared to the lithium. In case of lithium, electron is close to the nucleus, therefore attraction is more. To break that strong attraction, you require more energy. That means threshold frequency is more. From lithium to sodium, threshold frequency decreases. From sodium to potassium, threshold frequency even more decreases because size increases, attraction becomes weak. From potassium to rubidium, it is even more decrease because there is increase in the size. Therefore, out of all the 4 metals, rubidium contains the very less threshold frequency. That means the M1 must be rubidium. What is M2? Now you can say, what is M2? M2 is nothing but the potassium, and M3 is sodium, and M4 is lithium. This is how they asked the questions in very creative manner on the photoelectric effect, students. So if you are perfect in the concept, any questions that comes on these concepts can be easily answered. Right. So size increase, work function decrease. So you have to write that phi work function is inversely proportional to atomic size. If you remember this concept, these kind of questions can be easily answered. I hope now you are comfortable in the photoelectric effect concept.